In the last episode, Japan's S-rank hunters faced off against the Ant King, and despite their combined strength, they were overpowered and severely beaten. Just as they were on the brink of death, Jinwoo's shadow soldier emerged from the ground to help them, and now, episode 12 begins. Jinwoo arrives at the scene, his imposing shadow army following closely behind him. Using shadow exchange, he has crossed the distance in an instant. His army stands in silent formation, awaiting his command. Without hesitation, he calls forth Iron, who immediately activates his skill, Shout of Provocation. A deafening roar reverberates across the battlefield, enraging the swarming ants. Jinwoo acknowledges Iron's effort with a nod before drawing his Demon King's daggers, his movements swift and precise as he carves through the approaching enemies with ruthless efficiency. On the sidelines, Dong-wook stands frozen, unable to comprehend the battle unfolding before his eyes. His mind struggles to process the sheer force and skill displayed before him. Yoon-ho, however, remains composed, watching the scene with a sense of reassurance. There is no longer any doubt, everything will be fine now. An ant lunges forward, but before it can even pose a threat, Igris intercepts it with brutal force, slamming it into the ground before slicing through anything in his path. Iron, too, rampages across the battlefield, cutting down every monster in his sight with overwhelming strength. The tide of battle shifts rapidly, the once dominant ant forces now crumbling before Jinwoo's overwhelming power. Observing the battlefield, Jinwoo decides to escalate the fight even further. Activating his shadow extraction skill, he resurrects the fallen ants, transforming them into additional soldiers for his ever-growing army. The cameraman, still filming the spectacle, watches in utter disbelief. His thoughts race as he struggles to comprehend what he is witnessing. It defies all logic, something that should not be possible. The broadcaster demands an explanation, but the cameraman himself remains at a loss for words. The battlefield is now in utter chaos, with the once united ant horde turning against itself. Jinwoo commands his forces to regroup, but quickly realizes that transactions cannot be made in this location. Instead, he retrieves healing potions, distributing them among the injured. Without hesitation, they consume the elixirs, their bodies rapidly regenerating. The miraculous recovery leaves them in shock. Yoon-ho, still trying to process what has just happened, examines his body, struggling to believe that his wounds have completely healed in an instant. Despite the overwhelming relief, concern arises as Dong-wook notices that Miss Cha remains unconscious. Unlike the others, her condition has not improved. Jinwoo assesses her injuries and immediately recognizes the severity of the situation. Her wounds are far too grave for him to heal with his abilities alone. Worse yet, her condition is deteriorating with each passing moment. There is no time to waste. More ants will arrive soon, and staying here any longer is too great a risk. As Jinwoo prepares to move, an overwhelming presence suddenly makes itself known. He halts, his senses sharpening as he recognizes the approaching threat. The battlefield, which had seemed momentarily under control, now shifts once more. The Ant King has arrived. He tells that the true king had not been outside. Goto had never been the real threat. The realization dawns upon Yoon-ho, who struggles to process the implications. If this creature is the real Ant King, then it can only mean one thing: Goto had lost. The weight of that thought alone is enough to send a wave of unease through him. Dong-wook clenches his fists in frustration, but before he can voice his thoughts, Jinwoo makes his decision clear. Miss Cha must be taken to safety. Ignoring any attempts to stop him, Jinwoo steps forward, his mind piecing together the events that led to this moment. The reason he could no longer detect Goto's shadow was now painfully obvious. It had been erased by the monster standing before him. The Ant King radiates a menacing aura, its towering frame exuding an overwhelming sense of power. As it approaches, its voice reverberates across the battlefield. Unlike the mindless creatures before it, this one is different. This one speaks. It acknowledges Jinwoo's presence, its words laced with curiosity and challenge. The question hangs in the air, carrying the weight of something far greater than mere observation. The Ant King wants to know, is he the king of the humans? Jinwoo narrows his eyes, taking in the sight of the monstrosity standing before him, a talking insect, a powerful foe. The two stand face to face, the battlefield falling silent around them as the tension between them reaches its peak. Jinwoo stands firm as the Ant King acknowledges the overwhelming pressure radiating from him. The creature lets out a thunderous roar, but it has no effect on Jinwoo. A smirk forms on his lips as he mocks the Ant King, stating that it is finally behaving like a real insect. 5 minutes earlier, at the coast of the city, Jo-hee stares at her phone screen in disbelief as the broadcast suddenly cuts off. Song, noticing her reaction, asks about the fate of the hunters, while she herself struggles to comprehend what kind of monster that ant truly was. Jong-soo, visibly frustrated, clenches his fists and curses the abrupt end of the broadcast. Yoon-tae, confused by the situation, questions what exactly is going on. Meanwhile, on a news channel, a grim confirmation shakes the viewers. Byung-gu has been declared dead. Min-sung, shocked by the report, feels a wave of disbelief wash over him. The reporter continues, stating that the other hunters remain trapped within the tunnels, and their survival is uncertain. The uncertainty looms heavily until another shocking update arrives. A new hunter has joined the raid. The newsroom, now in a frenzy, rushes to restart the live broadcast. In another part of the city, Hee-jin and her friends watch the broadcast, their eyes wide with shock. None of them can believe what they are seeing. At the same time, Sugimoto delivers his report with a grave expression. He recounts Goto's last words. The ant has quite a threatening presence. When the Ant King had asked Goto if he was the king, Goto had affirmed it, and those had been his final words before his demise. Matsumoto grits his teeth, the weight of the revelation pressing down on him. An ant capable of speaking the human language, and on top of that, one powerful enough to kill Goto. The implications are terrifying. Sugimoto awaits further orders, but Matsumoto, suppressing his rage, demands to know the Ant King's current location. Sugimoto informs him that it has returned to the Queen's chamber. Matsumoto, his anger boiling over, then asks if the Korean hunters are still alive. Sugimoto nods, revealing that not only are they alive, but they are also detecting additional mana signals, strong ones emanating from another entity. Frustration clouds Matsumoto's face as he swiftly orders them to turn on the television. He needs to see the live broadcast immediately. Back at Jinwoo's home, Gina enters the living room, puzzled, and asks her mother what she is doing. Her mother apologizes, explaining that the television suddenly stopped working. Gina then asks where Jinwoo is, to which her mother replies that he left in a hurry, assuring her that he wouldn't be gone for long. Still curious about the malfunctioning TV, Gina questions her mother again, but before waiting for a response, she heads off to investigate. Watching her daughter disappear behind the door, their mother sighs, commenting to herself that both siblings seem unusually restless today. Inside her room, Gina's eyes widen in sheer disbelief at what she is witnessing on the screen. At the Hunter Association headquarters, Gun-hee clenches his fist tightly upon recognizing Jinwoo on the battlefield. The tension in the room is palpable. A subordinate, noticing Gun-hee's reaction, urges him to remain calm, but Gun-hee knows. The situation unfolding before them is far beyond ordinary. Jinwoo now stands face to face with the Ant King. The colossal beast moves first, attempting to slam Jinwoo into the ground. However, Jinwoo does not falter. He holds his ground effortlessly. The sheer force of their clash shatters the ground beneath them, creating a massive explosion. The resulting shockwave sends debris flying in every direction. As the dust settles, Jong-in, watching the battle unfold, comments stating that mages should never get too close to their enemies. Yoon-ho, on the other hand, speculates that Jinwoo may have underestimated the Ant King and taken a direct hit to the face. But as the dust clears, a collective gasp of shock erupts from the observers. The Ant King, standing over, scoffs, calling Jinwoo weak and dismissing him as unworthy of being a king. Yet before it can finish its taunt, everyone witnesses something unbelievable. Jinwoo, standing firm, completely unscathed. He spits out a small amount of blood, his expression unreadable. Then, without a word, he activates Commander's touch. A dark aura envelops his hand as he prepares to retaliate. The Ant King, sensing the overwhelming power radiating from him, suddenly feels an unnatural pressure crushing down on its body. Its knees buckle involuntarily under the weight of Jinwoo's aura. Before it can even comprehend what is happening, Jinwoo moves. In a blur of motion, Jinwoo delivers a devastating punch. The force behind it is monstrous, sending the Ant King hurtling through the air. It crashes into the wall with an earth-shaking impact, debris scattering in all directions. The sheer force of the strike leaves the onlookers stunned. Tae-gyu and the cameraman, both witnessing the clash up close, are left speechless. Dong-wook, struggling to believe what he is seeing, turns to Yoon-ho and Jong-in, his voice shaking with disbelief. He asks if they still believe Jinwoo is a mage-type hunter. Yunho, though still in shock, responds honestly. He always knew Jinwoo was strong, but never in his wildest dreams did he imagine he was this strong. Recovering from the blow, the Ant King lets out another deafening roar. Jinwoo, unfazed, observes its body with an amused smirk. He notes that its durability must be due to its exoskeleton, though he finds it rather annoying. Without missing a beat, he readies himself once again. The Ant King, now enraged, launches a full-powered assault. However, Jinwoo meets its attack effortlessly, blocking it with a single hand. The two engage in a brutal exchange, their blows shaking the very ground beneath them. Jinwoo lands a vicious punch to the Ant King's stomach, causing it to stagger. In retaliation, the Ant King strikes back with all its might. The battle intensifies, neither side relenting as they clash in a ferocious display of raw power. The cameraman, despite being an A-rank hunter himself, finds it nearly impossible to stand properly in the face of the sheer intensity of the mana waves erupting from their battle. His body trembles as he grabs his camera tightly, barely holding on to his consciousness. Meanwhile, doubt creeps into the Ant King's mind. It begins to question itself. Is it truly losing a battle of strength? As the relentless barrage continues, its once impenetrable exoskeleton starts to crack under the force of Jinwoo's attacks. The Ant King stares at him, its monstrous mind racing with a single thought. What is this man? They glare at each other, their fists colliding with immense force before they step back to regain their balance. The Ant King reels in shock. Jinwoo has broken through its exoskeleton. It finds the situation impossible to believe, yet before it can fully process what has happened, Jinwoo dashes forward at a speed that leaves it stunned. Without hesitation, he delivers a devastating punch, sending the Ant King soaring into the air. In response, the Ant King finally reveals its spear-like tongue and strikes with precision. The attack lands, forcing Jinwoo to stagger back before falling to one knee. A sudden realization washes over him as he senses something unfamiliar coursing through his body. The poison is spreading. After consuming the cone snail, the Ant King had acquired the ability to use poison paralysis, one of the most lethal substances created by nature. Now, combined with the mana concentrated within its body, the poison has become even deadlier. Observing Jinwoo's weakened state, the Ant King declares his struggle meaningless. It had fought well, but this is where its life must end. Without hesitation, it lunges to finish the battle. Jinwoo, however, remains motionless. Meanwhile, in Jeju City, the rain continues to fall steadily. Kanai watches Minoru closely, noting the tremble in his stance. She informs him that she received a call from Sugimoto and demands an explanation. Minoru, his voice laced with fear, mutters that they cannot win. The creature they face is beyond anything they have encountered. S-ranks mean nothing against it. Humanity itself would be powerless. Even Goto failed to stop it, and so will they. Kanai grits her teeth, her frustration mounting as she questions whether he has lost his resolve. Minoru, unable to shake his terror, continues to repeat that it cannot be stopped. Disgusted, Kanai shoves him back, her voice laced with irritation as she calls him pathetic. Before she can say more, her gaze shifts to a helicopter hovering above. Her expression darkens as she realizes the true problem is only beginning. She curses under her breath. Back in the collapsing cavern, Jinwoo suddenly tightens his grip around the Ant King's arm. A sharp, cracking sound echoes through the battlefield, sending a shockwave of realization through the Ant King's mind. Without allowing it time to react, Jinwoo delivers a powerful punch, launching it across the cavern with crushing force. The Ant King crashes violently into the wall, letting out a piercing screech as fractures spread across its exoskeleton. Jinwoo swiftly detoxifies himself, regaining full control over his body. An unusual sensation overtakes him as he realizes he can feel the Ant King's emotions. The creature had felt satisfaction when its poison began spreading, but now, all traces of confidence have been replaced by anxiety. However, Jinwoo knows he is not the only one noticing the shift in tension. His teammates are growing restless as well. Miss Cha remains unconscious, her condition worsening with each passing moment. He recognizes the urgency of the situation. The fight must end quickly. Without hesitation, he leaps into the air. Below, the Ant King, still struggling to recover from the force of Jinwoo's last attack, looks up in shock. Before it can react, Jinwoo's foot connects with devastating power. A massive explosion erupts upon impact, shaking the entire cavern and sending tremors through the ground. The walls begin to collapse under the sheer force of the battle. Yunho watches in horror, desperately scanning the battlefield to locate the Ant King. Jong-in stands frozen in confusion, unable to process the unfolding chaos. Jinwoo, however, remains composed as he watches the Ant King being sent flying. The realization dawns upon the creature: it cannot rely on poison. Wearing Jinwoo down through attrition is an impossible strategy. With this understanding, the Ant King makes a choice. Its exoskeleton begins to shrink as it redirects all remaining energy into its speed. If strength is Jinwoo's greatest asset, then there is no advantage in facing him head-on. True victory lies in agility. With a piercing gaze, the Ant King silently acknowledges that the battle has now entered its final phase. Jinwoo draws his daggers, his body poised for combat. Their eyes meet once more, signaling the beginning of yet another clash. The Ant King moves first, striking with blinding speed, but Jinwoo anticipates its attack and evades effortlessly. The Ant King, stunned by his reflexes, barely registers Jinwoo's counterattack before it is forced to defend itself. A relentless barrage of slashes follows, each attack sharper and faster than the last. The Ant King moves on instinct, blocking each strike with inhuman reaction speed. Jinwoo briefly withdraws, only to surge forward once more, pressing the attack. They collide in a violent exchange, neither willing to yield. As the battle rages on, the Ant King's astonishment grows. Jinwoo is not merely keeping up with its speed, he is surpassing it. The thought seems inconceivable, yet the reality is undeniable. Jinwoo assesses his opponent with an unshaken resolve. The Ant King is as powerful as the demon monarch Baran, perhaps even stronger. However, since defeating Baran, Jinwoo has undergone significant growth. His weapons have evolved, his strength has multiplied, and most importantly, the Ant King's once impenetrable exoskeleton is now barely holding together. The end is inevitable. Sensing its impending defeat, the Ant King fights more aggressively, but its body continues to deteriorate under the relentless assault. Jinwoo recognizes the opportunity and wastes no time. Activating his critical skill, he unleashes a devastating flurry of attacks, each strike landing with lethal precision. His critical rate reaches its peak, even surpassing his expectations. Desperation takes hold of the Ant King as it attempts to flee. Jinwoo, unmoved by its efforts, refuses to let it escape. Without hesitation, he activates Mutilate, cutting through the Ant King multiple times in rapid succession. Impressed by the technique's effectiveness, he activates it once more, striking with overwhelming force. The final slash tears through the Ant King's body completely. The creature roars in agony, its form collapsing under its own weight. For the first time, a genuine sense of despair seeps into its thoughts. It questions whether there is truly no escape, no advantage left to exploit. Then, realization strikes. The flicker of a final strategy presents itself. With a last, thunderous roar, the Ant King summons its army. A horde of monstrous ants emerges from the darkness, filling the battlefield in an endless wave. The march begins, countless enemies surging forward with unwavering determination. Confidence returns to the Ant King. It has won, but Jinwoo only grins. Without hesitation, he calls forth his own army. The air trembles as the shadows rise, materializing one by one. The battlefield erupts into chaos as the armies collide. The fierce fight begins between the army of ants and the shadow army of Jinwoo. At this point, the situation appears to have reversed, as the ants, once bold in their assault, now seem to be cornered. Igris initiates the attack by releasing a sword slash, decapitating one of the ants. Meanwhile, one of the orc guards slices an ant's body in half, while the mother orc guard delivers a powerful punch that hits the mother ant's body. Following this, Jinwoo commands, "Come forth," and a shadow emerges from behind him, Tusk. Before Tusk attacks, Jinwoo warns him to only target the ants, and if any humans are harmed, Tusk will not be summoned again. Tusk nods in agreement, signaling that he will follow the orders. He then activates the Hymn of Giants, and an energy fireball begins to form in his mouth. He directs it at the ants in front of him, and in an instant, a giant blast of fire engulfs numerous ants. The power of the skill is so intense that it even pierces through the tunnel, resembling a laser beam. Taegyu and Dongwook are astonished by the events unfolding before them. Taegyu wonders if what they are seeing is a summoned beast, and if Jinwoo truly summoned it. Dongwook replies to his statement that it does not look like a beast, but more like a devil descending upon the land, watching as the ants burn under Tusk's fire. The ants, watching the others being consumed by the fire, struggle to comprehend the situation. In its mind, It has always been the strongest ever since its birth. Flashbacks of its past, slaying powerful foes like Kei, Ryuji, and Byung-gu, flood its thoughts. It had devoured anyone who dared to stand in its way, and had claimed its place at the top of the food chain. In its mind, there was no limit to how powerful it could become. It believed itself to be the king. But now, as it watches Jinwoo emerge from the fire, it continuously questions why. As Jinwoo approaches, his eyes glowing with an intense aura, the ant realizes it must flee to survive. A green aura surrounds the ant, and Jinwoo, recognizing the use of Byung-gu's healing ability, realizes he is facing a beast with the ability to absorb the skills of its opponents through devouring them. In the following moments, the ant retreats, its only thought being to escape far. Jinwoo activates his commander's touch, and a massive aura in the shape of a hand materializes above the ant. With a swift motion, Jinwoo slams the hand down, crushing the ant to the ground. The impact is so powerful that the ant is smashed. The ant, startled by the sudden attack, tries to crawl away using its claws, attempting to escape from Jinwoo.